Joining us now is North Carolina Congressman Mark Harris. Congressman Harris, what is your reaction to President Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport Tren de Aragua gang members to El Salvador?
Well, Matt, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be with you today. And listen, my reaction is that it is a travesty that the president is having to go through this experience right now when he is working hard to fulfill exactly what he promised the American people he was going to do. He is making good on those promises. He is rounding up these criminals and this gang that has been responsible for the murders of individuals here in the United States. Have been rounded up, they've been put on a plane and deported, and the audacity of a single federal judge being able to just sign a notice or make a ruling that somehow that he would think they would even turn those planes around is really just the height of arrogance, and I think overstepping the bounds of the courts in a way that the American people aren't buying. So I hope and pray that today, I know there's been a conversation. I've been traveling today to get back to D.C., so I haven't heard a lot of the reports of how the arguments went with the three-judge panel, but I'm hopeful that the appellate court is going to uphold the president's power to make sure that he's able to fulfill and follow through on this commitment.
I wish I could just inject the answer you gave into the veins of the appellate court. That was exactly right. A single judge does not have the power to conduct foreign policy on behalf of the United States, and it's ludicrous to even suggest that they do. A lot of attention seems to be given to, whether or not the order was given first or the planes took off first. But I think you have stated it correctly that the plenary power of the president would authorize him to do either. If the final flight to El Salvador took off after the judge gave a verbal order to turn the planes around, do you even have a problem with that?
No, I mean, this is a 1798 law that has been passed and has been used. We have precedent for when it's been used in war, World War I, World War II, and other times. And let's face it, we have recognized, the American people did in November of 2024 when they elected Donald J. Trump, that our nation was invaded and being invaded on our southern border. And under the Biden administration, that invasion was going on at incredible numbers. And the president made a commitment that he was going to stop the border. He was going to find these that have come in illegally, and he was going to deport them. And he made it clear that he was going to go after the criminal element first and in the strongest possible way. And that's exactly what he and Tom Homan have done. And I think the American people overall approve of exactly what is happening here. I believe it's constitutional. And again, I think it's overstepping the court's bounds to even try to say that the president doesn't have this authority.
Congressman, you talk about that criminal element, and that seems to be what concerns Americans of all political stripes in every district in the country. If someone is in the country illegally and they have a Tren de Aragua tattoo, should any other due process be required before deportation?
So I believe that they should be arrested, and I believe that the power that the president has, because they have been a part of this invasion, I think you go back, Matt, and folks recognize that we have been invaded. That's an act of war. When you have people coming over our southern border at will, breaking the law over and over, putting an undue burden on the American economy, putting an undue burden on the American education system, putting an undue burden on our law enforcement. Listen, it's at every turn, and the whole national security piece of it figures into it at a high level. And I just think that this is the right thing that the president is doing, and I think we stand with him. And Congress, I hope, is going to stand with him. And I've been a part of co-sponsoring Representative Ice's bill that is going to change where we don't have a federal district court judge able to somehow pass injunctions that have that kind of national power.
I hope that the House of Representatives moves that legislation post-haste. We're seeing a report from Punchbowl News that Speaker Johnson wants to avoid impeachment of judges and instead focus on that ISA legislation that you just talked about and the upcoming reconciliation process. Do you agree with that strategy?
I do. I agree with that. Listen, I think that we take steps that we know we're going to be able to accomplish. I think impeachment is something that is necessarily a step that we could enter into because, again, I think we've got the judiciary that's overstepped their bounds. I do think there's the political reality involved in this, and that getting those kind of votes in the Senate to actually fulfill an impeachment may be nearly impossible. But I do think the Speaker is making the call here that this is going to take care of the problem, or a lot of the problem, if we can keep them from being able to issue these nationwide injunctions. And I think the American people would easily get behind that.
Yeah, I fully agree. As the House starts looking at building this reconciliation budget deal, what are the priorities that you're focused on, Congressman Harris?
I think when we're building reconciliation, we're looking at the balance that we're trying to make sure that we make the shrinking of government the priority that we all ran on, that President Trump ran on. I think we're setting priorities to make sure that in every one of the committees, the directives that have been given is going to try to cut spending. That's going to be a very important piece of this. And I think we are going to be able to continue the Trump tax cuts and extend them. I think that's an important piece of it. The American people are expecting us to get that done. But in order to get that done, we've got to reach that $1.5 trillion to $2 trillion and hopefully get to the $2 to $2.5 trillion of savings that we're going to have. And then if we have those savings, we can even add more of the tax cuts that we would like to see accomplished as well. So I think those triggers are important, and I think that we're on the right track, and I think we've just got to have the courage and determination to stay the course that we've started. And listen, we've taken the narrative out of the hands of the left, and we see what it's caused. They were already writing the narrative. Their journalists already had their pens wet to say Republicans couldn't govern, that somehow we weren't going to be able to hang together and move this legislation. And yet we did it with the budget framework. We did it even with the CR because we recognized that it was really one of the first CRs ever to actually cut spending from the previous year by $7 billion net gain, if you will. And we also have a president in the White House that we believe gives him time to get done what he needs to get done as we move into the reconciliation. So there's a lot of great things happening. And you see what happens when you take the narrative away from them, because the Democrats are lost right now. They don't have a leader. They don't have a vision. They don't know what they're doing, and they're imploding every single day, it seems.
Yeah, that was my final question for you, Congressman. Because the Republican team seems to have leadership and vision and a real plan that you're following, and the Democrats, I mean, they're talking about firing Chuck Schumer. Hakeem Jeffries is at war with the progressive wing of his party. Are they all in one large communistic struggle session? Are they having to have reconciliation talks with one another? What are you able to observe about how they're dealing with a Republican unity and a Republican agenda?
Well, as I said, I really feel like they have lost any narrative the only narrative they thought they were going to be able to operate on. And as long as we're working together, as long as we're working with the president, we're moving his agenda, we're wanting to see these things come to pass, promises made, promises kept. That's what we've got to do to keep our eye on the ball and moving his agenda forward. And it leaves them at a total loss of a narrative whatsoever, because I do think they're going through all those things that you mentioned right now, just trying to find some kind of a narrative that they can create. But right now, they haven't found it, and I'm thankful.
Congressman Mark Harris, we're glad you're there fighting for all of us. We appreciate it. Stay safe there in Washington, D.C., okay?
Thank you, my friend.
RFK Jr.